Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. You are here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. Our guest today is Melissa Russiano. Melissa is a licensed clinical social worker in private practice, which organically developed into a specialty working with helping professionals, perfectionists, and overachievers. Welcome to the game. Melissa has a track record with clients to avoid burnout in a unique way that holds individuals accountable through laughter, tears, direct feedback, and quirky analogies that are grounded in research. Melissa practices virtually in the states of California, Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee. Melissa is an active, certified Daring Way facilitator based on the research of Brené Brown that is integrated into her work. She believes in living life authentically, imperfect, while always dreaming big. Perfect person to be here for our audience. Welcome to the show, Melissa Russiano.
Thank you. Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am grateful that you're here because you have so many topics that work with our audience, certainly from my point of view. And some of the things that I saw in what you gave me was that, failure is not negative. It's a teachable moment. Right. Shame does not need to determine your destiny, and that we can be resilient. So what is your backstory that took you to this place? Because it's usually all about how we broke through something that gets us to a place of healing others.
Right, absolutely. And that is typically one of the first questions I ask anybody that I work with is, tell me your why. And sometimes, you get that quizzical look of, what are you talking about? And it's like, your why. Why do you do what do you do? And I think for me, it was growing up in this, a nuclear family or traditional family and always being this overachiever and getting to college and deciding that pre-med really wasn't the route I wanted to take, but I still wanted to help people, and just kind of getting into the field of social work and wanting to work with people. And then all of a sudden I was like, great, I've got this awesome degree. I'm going to go save the world. Went and got married, and then 4 years later ended up divorced. And looking at it and saying, oh my gosh, I teach people how to have effective communication. I work with couples. I do a lot of parenting. And here I have this little girl, and now I'm 6 hours away from my family. I don't want to move back home. And can I still keep doing what I'm doing? There was a lot of questions going through my brain of, what does this say about me as a clinician, as a helper? And it was now I can say it was an excellent time of growth. At the time, I probably would have argued with myself. But, to be able to say, okay, what do I want my identity to be? And I think as humans, as women, as high achievers, or somebody who has this perfect life that they've established in their brain of first you do this and then you do this and everything falls into line. When that is shook at the core, it really makes you question, who am I and what do I really want? And what do I want that identity to become? And how do I want to grow from this? I was at a webinar a few months ago, virtual webinar, let me say. But anyway, I heard this great line that it's so simple. I don't know why anybody hadn't thought of it before, but that the word fail is first attempt in learning. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, talk about a reframe. I'm not saying, like in my case of being divorced, that, I should have multiple failures to learn how to be in a healthy relationship. But I think just that concept of looking at failure as this is a learning, this is a teachable moment. So how can I take this disruption of my quote unquote perfect plan and be a better person on the other side, which then just builds that internal resiliency. And it's not like, let me snap my fingers and, okay, this is who I want to be, and now I'm resilient. It becomes a process, and it becomes a lot of self-awareness, a lot of internal insight, and sometimes a lot of hard work. To be able to get to that point to say, okay, I'm okay with who I am, and I'm okay that my life wasn't perfect, and I'm okay in the place that I'm at right now, and I'm enough right where I'm at. And there's zero shame in having an event occur to you, which I'm sure some of your listeners have found themselves in situations that they had absolutely no part in occurring. And then other individuals are kind of co-authors of an event, like such as a marriage and a divorce. But it doesn't matter how you ended up in that place. You get the opportunity to rewrite the next chapter of your story if you're willing to take that step, and if you're willing to really look inside and say, okay, I'm going to learn from this. Even the ugly pieces, I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to be better and stronger on the other side.
Well, you mostly learn from, I think, from the ugly stuff.
Absolutely.
We're not put on this earth. We have the brain, but we don't have any content in the brain. So
Correct.
We have no way to make decisions about anything. I mean, it's as if we're a toddler or an infant all the time. Mm-hmm. You're crawling, you're stumbling, you're walking, and then maybe you're running. And I think the running part to me is the adult part. But we don't know what to do, and if we're not guided by our parents properly, and what do they know? I mean, we'll tend to repeat things, what they do, how they cook, how they live, how they communicate. We do what they do. We see that all the time. That was always disturbing to me, which is why I left, because it was like, I don't want to be like these people.
Right.
I moved 3,000 miles away. I says, these are not my people. I don't know where whatever. But there's no way that we know unless we do stumble, fall, and maybe even fail. Right.
Absolutely. And I know that there are individuals who are blessed with lives that, at least on the surface, look perfect. And I hear a lot of that with the clients I work with is, well, so-and-so doesn't have any hiccups. Well, that's only because they only show you what it is they want you to see. And I think that's why I'm so committed and passionate in working with individuals who feel like they have to hide all their imperfections, because that's what makes you who you are. And if you hang your head in shame because there was a failure, a misstep, an error that was made along the way, then it doesn't give you that empowerment to say, it's okay. It's okay for me to learn and take that next step forward. And I just wish as women, as people who are in like really high achieving jobs or just in the neighborhood community, that we didn't keep those kinds of things behind so many closed doors, because shame is what keeps you captive.
I was just going to say, where did we learn to be ashamed of ourselves? It's been coming up a lot lately. People have been talking about it a lot. The shame. It's like, does it come because we are not like the others in our immediate family, and then somebody points it out? At least I would say that's was my experience. And I think that when someone shames you, it stays for decades. It can stay for decades.
Yes.
Because you don't even know what's happening.
Correct.
And it takes an outsider such as yourself to go, that you don't have to live with that.
Absolutely. And I tend to call that the inner critic, because that shame voice tends to be the super critical voice you hear in your head. And it's what holds you back. It's what tells you you're not good enough. And a lot of times, and my style as a clinician is not to say, let's go backwards to find out who wronged you. Yes, we need to do that at times, but my style is more about, okay, where are you at now? Where do we want to get to? And what barriers do we have to work through to get you there? And it's in the barriers that sometimes we need to look at childhood or earlier events in your life. But often that inner critic is the person that was the most vocal in telling you in whatever form or fashion that you weren't pretty enough, you weren't thin enough, you weren't good enough, you weren't smart enough, you weren't fill in the blank enough. And that is the voice that we work on undoing so that you then can recreate what you want that voice to be.
It's interesting that you're talking about barriers in the way. I mean, even if you do start today, as you say you do with your clients, you start in the present and move forward. Those blocks that will appear will always appeared in some form or another in order to get your attention.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's the way they present themselves to the you of today that you're able to handle them. Because if you're a 10-year-old child, you're going to get a different block. You're going to get a different picture than if you're a 40 or 50-year-old person.
Correct. And I like to use a lot of like quirky analogies, so bear with me for 2 seconds. Sure. But there's this local shopping center that decided people were speeding through the parking lot, so they put these speed bumps in. And let me tell you, these were like Mount Everest speed bumps. There was, no matter how slow you went, you always bottomed out your vehicle, no matter how slow you went. And so somebody got intelligent however long later, and they put them down to a reasonable size. And so now you have to slow down, but you don't actually have to stop your vehicle and like hold your breath as you go over. And that is a lot of what the barriers in our lives are. I can't take away pain that happened when somebody was a child, an adolescent, an adult. I can never erase that memory. And I don't know if I would want to erase that memory, because that's part of what makes that person who they are today. However, they don't have to be Mount Everest speed bumps. They can be those normal things of saying, okay, yes, this happened. And yes, I have to be aware that maybe there are triggers in the future, but they don't have to slow me down that I basically need to stop my life. I just need to slow down and be aware, but I can keep moving forward. And that's where resilience comes in, because resilience is the ability to look at the past, accept, embrace, and make it a part of your future in a way that's empowering and not destructive.
Yes. It's important to reframe the story so that you could handle it with the you of today as opposed to the you of decades ago. And as you say, be resilient, accept and embrace what's going on in your life. And although sometimes I do still feel like punching.
That's okay. That's all right. You're allowed.
I'm allowed. Yes. As long as I don't hurt anybody or break anything, I can do any of that, even if it's, in my mind, because that's where probably it mostly would be. So tell us about, I'm sure the audience wants to know about your virtual services, yes, in the states of, because are you licensed in California, Ohio, Pennsylvania?
I am. I am licensed in all of the states. Okay. Yes, I am. So basically with therapists, just in case it's a little informational tidbit, is that I need to be licensed in the state that I live, but also in the state where the client resides.
I see.
So being somebody who is an empty nester Pre-COVID, my favorite thing was to go visit friends. And so what I decided to do, especially if there was a beach involved, and so I pursued accessing licenses in states where there was large quantities of sand and beaches, but also where I had family where I travel frequently, with the goal of being able to continue to work regardless of where I was. And so my practices have been virtual even before COVID hit.
Sure.
Now, obviously, the majority of us are still virtual, but it allows people as well, especially I find in the helping professional communities, and those aren't the only clients that I see, but if I would want to see a therapist in my small community, I kind of know them all.
Right.
Or I used to be an executive director of an agency, so if I don't know them, they worked for me. If I don't know them personally, they worked for me in some form or fashion. And so it's like, well, gosh, if I really had this trauma and I'm going to take my own advice and go talk to somebody, I sure as heck don't want to talk to somebody in my own community.
Correct.
So the benefit of being able to connect via a video, virtual, HIPAA-compliant platform is that you get to talk to somebody who you're never going to cross professional paths with. And that just gives a sense of security. That I can be completely vulnerable and open and honest with this individual and not have to worry about running into them, in any local establishment. So I love meeting people from all over the country. I do have a few international clients, which has been kind of fun to learn about different cultures. It keeps me on my toes for sure. I speak time language very fluently. I joke with people. But I want the individuals that choose to work with me to have the same experience as they would if they were walking into my office. And that's to be heard, to know that I'm in this with them, that, we're going to fight that arena battle together and get to the other side. And that is my commitment to anybody that I work with.
And on more than one occasion in the past few days, I've been to your website, and you do a lot of writing. And you also show in one of your, whatever they call them across the top of the website, the different types of clients you speak with and talk to and help. Could you delineate some of those right now for our audience to see
absolutely
where they might fit?
Well, when you look at service providing, a lot of it from a therapeutic standpoint is you're looking at different theories and different applications. But then there's ways to kind of narrow in and specialize. And so working with individuals with imposter syndrome, which I think on some levels we all have, compliments of social media. But
damn social media.
I know. So definitely looking at imposter syndrome, working with anxiety, working with overachievers, definitely people who deal with perfectionism. That is a lot of what my caseload is filled with, burnout and compassion fatigue. Just really meeting people at that space that they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know how to do anything different.
Right.
So a lot falls under that umbrella. But it really all, I think, falls into a lot of the lifestyles we all live today, juggling all of these things. I think in the beginning, COVID's biggest gift for everybody is it forced us to slow down. Right now, I'm not sure that's still such a great gift, but in the beginning, it was a fabulous gift.
Yeah, right. It's a little scary that people seem to have. My experience. Excuse me for interrupting.
No, go.
My experience of the current slowdown is a give up. It looks like a lot of people are giving up.
Exactly. Exactly.
I keep pushing my people up the mountain and say you can regroup, you can redo, but you can't quit. You can't quit. Do not quit, because that will be disastrous for them in the long run.
Correct.
it's not a safe place to be. But
No.
I think people who have taken anything that's going on outside of themselves too seriously, and they're buying into the media, social and otherwise.
Right.
Is there anything else? Yeah, social and otherwise. They're buying into somebody else's story.
Exactly.
No matter how tragic it may appear to be, it's somebody else's story and perspective.
Correct.
You do not need to play with them.
Correct. And I think the danger right now in that concept is that a year and a half ago, we could go out to the mall, to PTA, to the grocery store, and you could visually do that comparison, but then go on with your daily life and be distracted. Now I feel like people are making these comparisons based on what they see via feeds and streams and what they hear from people, but then they go back to being isolated in their home, and they spend way too much time, understandably, kind of thinking about it because those distractions aren't there to get on to the next task of their day. So, yeah, giving up's never an option.
No.
There's always a step to be taken. Might not be the step you want to take. It might be a baby step, but it's still a step, and it's still moving you forward.
Yeah, there has to be action.
Correct.
And you can't give up.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's I'm glad you are out there in your various states with beaches to to help others, work through this. And the problem is not enough people sign up to do anything. They just think that they're alone and they're desolate and they're just withdrawn. And, then they watch the news, God forbid, and then they're in a hole. They go down the rabbit hole, and then it becomes too easy to stay in bed and not get out of bed. And you can't do that, people. If you're listening, please, please, please do not do that. It's detrimental not only to your health, but to people that you know, and us too, to Melissa and myself who are watching. And waiting for people to, I hate to use these two words, they've been overused, rise up in a different way than you did before. Because each that is listening has the skill and the ability. You're listening, number one. That's number one. So if you're listening, you're looking for some information. You want somebody else to give you some insights. Well, don't poo-poo Melissa Russiano's insights. Don't poo-poo them. Just listen to them and take advantage. Go to her website at melissarussiano.com. That's MELISSARUSSIANO. Interesting how it's spelled Russia.
Well, actually, when I explained it to people, I was like, it's Russian and put an O in the end.
Right.
And so, it's an interesting way to remember it. But absolutely, and on my website, as you say, I do enjoy writing. Things have been a little busy the last couple of months that I haven't kept up with it as much as I want, but it is definitely one of my commitments to my website, to myself, to the people I work with, is that I always have weekly blogs with lots of good information. So if nothing else, check in, read the blogs, get some of those nuggets and those tidbits that you can start applying immediately.
Yes, they're brief enough yet specific enough for anyone to take action on.
Absolutely.
Oh, you can't end a sentence with a preposition. Well,
We can.
We can. Okay. So you can take action with what Melissa is writing about. Read what's appropriate for you. Just go through it because she's got some great content on her website and it's free, people. Okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So my first thing to do is remind everyone who is listening to re-listen to this podcast, because if you are listening when you're driving or listening when you're walking, you have not had the opportunity to take notes. I'm a note taker. I buy yellow pads. I use a lot of them. And I always recommend to people, start with the yellow pad because your hand with the pen or the pencil touching the paper creates connections in your brain. When you write on the computer, there's no connection to your brain. It's just draining. So if you want to put it on a Word document after, feel free. You have my permission. Go for it. But to begin with, take notes by hand. Because you'll be surprised how much you will remember if you never read that document again.
Agreed.
So
it works with emotions too. These online journals are nowhere near as effective as your old-fashioned handwritten journal.
They have to be. Everything has to be done by hand. Go back to basics. When in doubt, be a beginner. Always, always,
Absolutely.
always. Okay, so melissarussiano.com. And is there anything else you want to say in closing, Melissa, to the listeners?
No, I think just based on, just some of our recent comments is just don't give up, and I know things look, not so sunshine and rosy. And anybody who knows me knows I'm not Little Miss Mary Sunshine, but there's always a silver lining and there's always something to hope for and look forward for, and just don't give up. So reach out, get support, whether it's me, whether it's somebody in your support system, somebody in your local community, just get that support and know that you're not alone. No matter what people's social media says, you're not alone, and we're all feeling the same thing right about now.
Pretty much. I also want to tell the listeners to go to my website at AskJoanneVictoria.com and download your free copy of the True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. And I guess that's it for today, Melissa Russiano. So have a great day, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.